I hung up the phone and then I get a call like 15 minutes later from Joe Escalante. He's like, "What did you do?" I'm like, "What do you mean, what did I do? You got offered a no doubt tour and you passed on it." I was like, "We're on tour." He's like, "Yeah, but you could have taken a week off and came back." It was only a week, but he's like, "You could have taken a week off and come back to the Guttermouth tour." It's like, "What are you doing?"
Welcome, everyone, to This Was The Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000 punk scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Before we start, if you want to support the podcast, I put a link in the show notes to my favorite record store here in town. So if you want to buy me a beer or something like that, just click on the link, and there you go. The Aquabats are an American rock band formed in 1994 in OC, California, known for their distinctive superhero personas and costumes. They blend elements of ska, punk, and new wave music with humorous lyrics and theatrical live performances featuring stage fights against costume villains. Led by frontman MC Bat Commander, the band gained wider recognition through their children's television series, The Aquabats Super Show, which aired from 2012 to 2014. Throughout their career spanning nearly 3 decades, the Aquabats have maintained a dedicated cult following while continuing to release albums and performing their energetic, family-friendly shows. This is somewhat of a part 2 to my interview with Wiley from Assorted Jelly Beans, which is episode 252. So I had reached out to him originally to come on and talk about Assorted Jelly Beans, and then I got Wiley, which was awesome, so definitely go check out that interview. And Ricky was like, "Oh, I have some more stories to talk about," and I was like, "Well, that's great. Let's also talk about the Aquabats." So he said, "Sure," and I got him on the Skype, and this is what we chat about. Assorted Jelly Beans, getting heckled on stage, almost becoming the drummer for Blink, what did he bring to the Aquabats creatively, touring with the Offspring, Yo Gabba Gabba, do they always call each other by their stage names, Josh Freeze, and a ton more. Lastly, if you're looking to advertise on the podcast, I have pricing starting at $20, so just hit me up at thiswasthescene@gmail.com or on my Instagram, thiswasthescene, which you should go follow right now. That's all I got to say, so feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who'd love some punk rock nostalgia. With that said, let's get started.
It's funny hearing another band member's recollection on everything because I was listening to it and I'm like, "Oh man, he forgot about the most important part of that," or just like, "What about that one thing that happened?" It's like, it was pretty rad to hear though. It was cool.
Do you guys still talk here and there? Or?
We do. As he mentioned before, I'll reach out periodically, just because like we lived such a formative life, a part of our life together. I consider them brothers, and we've had ups and downs, like all three of us, and I just check in on them every now and then. And we were recently going to do a tour with the Suicide Machines and Against All Authority, and then we got approached to do Japan, which was awesome. And so we were talking, and it was going to happen. Everything was going, and then I think, like Wiley mentioned, someone got cold feet, and then just kind of it went dark. And so that was kind of the last. I think Wiley got bummed on that, got his hopes up high, and then got super bummed, which rightfully so, because it was going to be fun and we were looking forward to it. But yeah, so that was the last time I talked to him, but I did reach out on Instagram, just sent him a message checking in. It was cool to hear, and what you do is awesome. So
Thanks, man.
Stoked. Sorry it took so long to connect.
Oh, that's fine. I've had people recently, it's taken like 5 years to get them on because it's just trying to find time, or they just sometimes aren't on Instagram. And I'm like, I'll wait. I don't care. For all the folks listening, this is going to be, talking about your time in, getting the punk scene, talk a little bit about sort of Jelly Beans, and then going to Aquabats up until present day. And yeah, I think I had mentioned to you, or I did send you a message that we did play with Aquabats when Travis was in the band in like '99. And I was looking on, before I asked you like how you got in the punk scene, I'm on your Wikipedia. And so what was his nickname in the band?
He was the Baron von Tito.
Okay. That's why, because I looked at it and said, why isn't his name on there? But you guys all have nicknames, so that made sense. And it was just this tiny little sliver right before he gets in a blank.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, all right. So, like I said, I just kind of outline how this thing's going to go. I know Wiley said his side about how he got into the punk scene. I think you guys are pretty much the same timeline, but how did you initially get involved in the punk scene?
So I had always I come from a family of musicians, and my dad was mostly a guitar player. They were like in the Latin soul scene in Los Angeles, him and his brother, my uncle. So I knew that I always wanted to play music growing up. There was never any question, and drums was the thing that I fell in love with. So I started playing drums at an early age, although I didn't get a drum set until like a full drum set until I was in high school. But by that time, I had been taking like band class and lessons here and there, and had always had drumsticks and a drum pad, literally playing every day on like pots and pans and buckets and my friends' backpacks and hats when we're walking home from school. So by the time I did get the drum set in high school, I knew how to play the kit. So at the time, there wasn't very many drummers at our school. So we started a band with, I think Wiley mentioned it, with my really good friend Manny. We started jamming. We started playing some alternative music, is what they called it, but we were really into the Smiths at the time and some Cure stuff, and we just started playing. And then naturally, the only other band in our school was Ricky and Wiley, and they were kind of jamming. And Ricky's an amazing bass player, so we ended up kind of poaching him. He joined our band, which was called Way to Go. And then we ended up hooking up with Wiley, and we just started. They asked me if I would want to play with them. I'm like, sure, let's do it. So I started playing with them, and right away, like, we had something that was like special. It just felt right. And it was like the first time we did it, we're like, all right, cool. When are we going to practice again? We just kind of formed the band. And through that, I feel like we got a lot of traction early on really quick, because we lived in a desert town at the time. Riverside there wasn't much going on. So we started playing a bunch of parties. There was one specific event that we used to go to lunch at this place called Round Table Pizza. The guy knew us, and they had a back room there, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, can we throw a party here? Can our band play here? So we ended up doing that, and the place was so packed. He was stoked because he made a lot of money on pizza, but the place kind of got trashed. That was kind of our first like show that we kind of threw, but that was the punk scene back then. It was mostly like parties and makeshift shows in like people's backyards, because there was lots of orange groves there and lots of space where no one checked in on you. So we kind of just started playing a lot of backyard parties. And then I think Wiley also mentioned it. Our first like real show was given to us by Voodoo Glow Skulls, which was their record store, Cheap Guy Music. That was our first real punk show that was actually promoted, and like it was an actual show with other bands. I grew up in Los Angeles. Well, my younger years. I moved to Riverside when I was 13, but I used to skate a lot, and I had a friend who turned me on to Operation Ivy, and it was life changing. It was one of those things that I was really into reggae, and I never heard anything like that, and I just fell in love with that band, and then that was my gateway drug into like punk music. And then it just kind of spread from there.
Wiley, when he was just describing you guys as musicians, he was like, just you guys were top tier in his eyes, and he was kind of, it sounded like he was a little not as confident in his own playing. Like, so when you guys first started, how did you see him as a guitarist?
So that's interesting, because he said something that kind of struck a chord. I believe that anyone can play an instrument or sing. You just really want to have to do it. You have to have a passion that surpasses your talent. There's some people out there that just are naturally gifted. I don't think that was Wiley or myself. I think Ricky has that skill. He's incredibly talented on the bass, and he can just sing and harmonize really good. Wiley and myself, I feel like it was a little different story. We had to really work at it, but our love for what we did surpassed our ability not to play. So we literally played all day long. We would rehearse 4 or 5 hours, go skate all day, and then come back and then do it again. I think that was our life back then. And Wiley, as a guitar player, he's come a long way. I think it's always been an insecurity of his, to the point where we would get heckled on stage, and kind of it would derail our shows. And
Really?
oh yeah, there was a point in time where we would just get heckled all the time, because one of my pet peeves is like tuning on stage. like so there was a lot of that going on, and I think people would just get frustrated, and the scene was way different back then. There was no acceptance that they would eat you up, and we were younger, than all our peers that we were playing with. So I mean, at the time we were like 16, 17, and the guys that we were playing with were like 20s, mid 20s. Some burnout bands were like in their 30s, 40s, and the scene was brutal back then. It wasn't until we got on tour that we're like, oh, there's life beyond Riverside shows.
Were you looking for that?
Looking to go on tour?
Yeah, were you looking to get out of Riverside? Like when bands would come through and ask them this, and a lot of people that I interview, they see someone coming to town and they see that as almost like their gateway to get out of, I want to go visit a world, or I want to go travel the world. I play music. I love being in a band. We can do this as well.
It wasn't something specific. Getting out of Riverside at the time for us was like playing Los Angeles or Orange County. We were kind of naive in the way that we didn't know what came with being in a band at that time because we were still in high school, and we didn't know like you're going to be on tour for 3 months at a time, come home for 2 weeks, and then do it again. But that was an awesome bonus that came along with it. And like looking back, like what an opportunity that was to be. I didn't graduate from high school right out of 11th grade. I started playing, I think we started touring and whatnot. So it was a great opportunity, but it wasn't a conscious thing like, yeah, we got to get out of Riverside. We were just happy playing music, and anyone that would have us play a show, we would play it. And that's how it was back then. There were so many shows all the time in every city. It was wild.
Well, he was talking about your first tour. He mentioned it was with the Vandals, right?
Yes.
How intimidating was that intimidating for you?
You, in our head, we were just as good as them. Naive. We're
Oh,
really young, but in our mind, we're like, Wiley was right. We're gonna get up there and we're gonna like not give a crap, and we're gonna destroy it. We're just gonna leave it all on stage. And that was our mentality for a long time. Like we didn't care really. We just wanted to like leave people with their jaws on the floor. To backtrack on what Wiley said about the Vandals and how they discovered us, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because there's a little more to that story.
yeah.
It was kind of interesting how it actually happened. So we got asked to play on KSPC, which was a local college radio station. And we played on that radio station, and we did a cover of Knowledge, but we did it a little different. We did it like in a halftime feel with like a groove, and then it got fast. Sandra Escalante, Joe's wife, heard us on the show, and she told Joe, she's like, "Hey Joe, you got to listen to this band." Because back then you could record you had a cassette player, record the show, and then listen to it back. Sandra showed Joe our performance on KSPC, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, we gotta book a show with them," and because they were thinking of starting Kung Fu Records at the time, so they ended up booking a show with us in Victorville to kind of see how we were live and see what we did. And so we ended up playing that show in Victorville with the Vandals, and that's when they approached us and asked if we wanted to put a record out. And Wiley was right. At the time, we had recorded a CD for an independent promoter, ESOT of the Showcase Theater. We had already had that in the can, and we were waiting to release it. Looking back, it's probably a good thing we didn't release it because through Kung Fu, we got to do so much incredible things. So
Wait, so were you guys the first Kung Fu band?
we were the first Kung Fu band, and that first record did so well that they were like, "Oh, let's." It got the ball rolling for them, and the main thing for that was, I don't know if you remember, there was a compilation called Punk Uprisings that Lookout did.
Oh, totally.
So we had our song Brain Dead on there, and that alone paved the way for us. It got our name out there, and we were able to go play shows based off of that. So that really opened the door for us. The song did really well, and then the record sold really well, way way more than they thought, which was awesome.
I love how so anyone listening, they obviously you could tell that I interviewed Wiley, so that's episode 252, which I think is gonna be like four before this one. I'm looking at the bullet points right now from the interview, and you play in front of the Vandals and he's got a broken jaw and he's singing through like a wire or some shit, or he's like his jaw's
Yep.
broken and you guys play for him. You guys get on the label and then you guys just get on these awesome tours, and then like he said, Guttermouth was a pretty gnarly tour. Like those guys were wild.
That was wild. That was insane. And those guys went hard. That's all I got to say. And the crowd was like, it was hit and miss for us. Like, at the time, it was the thing to spit on Guttermouth while they're on stage.
Yeah, I remember
Mark,
that.
the singer, would have like everyone spit on him. So every now and then that would start an our set, and it was just, and that was a long tour. That was one of the longer tours we did. It went into Canada, all over the US. By the time we were done with that tour, we had a good connection with them. Like, I became good friends with the drummer Jamie. He was awesome. He actually gave me a few snare drums on the road. I got a different impression from what Wiley said, but I had good experiences with them. They were super awesome to us. And Mark and Jamie and Stever, they were all big brothers to us. We were just the little punks, you know what I mean?
Do you have any connections with any of like those bands from when you were in Assorted Jelly Beans and touring? I mean, obviously you probably saw them again through the years with Aquabats, right?
Yeah, for sure. I still keep in touch with a lot of the people. Guttermouth is one that they've had so many member changes, and it's really only Mark.
Yeah.
So so if I see Mark at a festival, we'll definitely say hi, and we'll chat it up for a bit. But the OG dudes are gone. I don't really know the newer guys, but Mark is still Mark.
Yeah, I saw them a couple years ago in North Carolina, and he was still just was like the same guy. It was
Yeah.
pretty hilarious.
Yep. Same dude.
To kind of just get up to the Aquabats part. So you guys are touring for years, and then I asked Wiley, I said, it sounds like you guys had great tours, and he said, well, don't get me wrong, we've had a lot of bad shows, and he talked about the one in Canada where you guys had no heat.
Oh man, okay. So that's an interesting one. Looking back, I don't know how we're still alive, because that was actually a 2 week. We did really well in Canada. For some reason, we can play shows on our own and headline out there, and a good portion of them would sell out. So we drove from California to Montreal, and we had to do it in a couple of days. We had that van that Wiley talked about that we called the Loaf. It was a big, giant van with four captain's chairs. The heater didn't work. It worked in California, but it was too cold everywhere else for the heater to work. And we just happened to leave during the worst ice storm in 30 years. We're driving there in our sleeping bag. We had full jackets on, like snow jackets, the glove warmers. We're in our sleeping bags, and we're still freezing. It was miserable. So we got to our first show, and we just missed it. Like, they were waiting for like 4 hours for us too, and it was a sold out show. I mean, it was only like a 300 seater, but they were there waiting for us. We missed our first show, but the rest of that tour was pretty solid. It was a really fun one, but just the drive there was trying. Like, looking back, I'm like, if we would have broke down somewhere where on one of these back roads, like, no one, we would have we would have been popsicles. It was intense. It was crazy.
What about like how close to that tour and you joining the Aquabats? Like what was the time difference, or what was the time in between that?
So that was probably like, I want to say 98-ish, 99. I didn't join the Aquabats until 2001. And there's a whole chain of events that had happened before that. I don't even think Ricky and Wiley know how I ended up in the Aquabats, because what Wiley's story was, I don't think it was 100% accurate. That's kind of not how that whole transaction happened. We were managed by Rick DeVoe, who managed Blink. So we were playing a lot of shows, and we did some tours with Blink, and we had the same management. And at the time, they were having trouble with their drummer Scott. So their management, Rick DeVoe, asked me. He gave me their CDs. He's like, "Hey, Tom and Mark want you to play drums and Blink. Do you want to do it?" At the time, we were recording What's Really Going On, our second album. And I'm like, I can't bail in the middle of the record. He's like, "Well, they need a drummer now, so you pretty much have the job if you learn the songs." I ended up passing because we were recording our second record, and I didn't I'm like, I can't bail on these dudes, like my high school buddies. I just didn't have it in me. and I wasn't fond of what they were doing musically at the time. So it just wasn't the right gig for me. So I ended up passing on that. And then the Aquabats were playing a show with Blink, and he filled in for them. And as soon as Travis is the man for that job for sure. As soon as he did that, he played in that show with them, that fill-in show. They're like, we gotta get this drummer. Like he's our guy. They poached him from the Aquabats mid tour, and then Travis actually mentioned, he's like, hey, you guys to the Aquabats, he's like, you should get Ricky. He'd be a good drummer for your band. And at the time, they were like, Aquabats were a little hurt that he just bailed mid tour, left them high and dry. And he's like, nah, we don't want anything to do with your friends or anything, right? We'll steer clear of that. So they got another drummer for, I don't know, a few years. And then it wasn't until 2000,
Is it Dr.
I would say,
Rock?
like, yeah, Dr. Rock. Yeah. His name's Gabe. So they had him for a while. It wasn't until we, sorry, my dog's howling outside.
Oh, I was like, is that a fucking wolf? Like, what is that?
Yeah, so that kind of played out. Travis joins Blink, and then they get a new drummer, Dr. Rock. So I would say three-ish years later, maybe, the Bat Commander booked some shows with Assorted Jelly Beans. One of them was in San Diego. It was called at Canes, and then the other one was at the Grove in Anaheim. So we played with the Aquabats, Assorted Jelly Beans, and the Bat Commander came up to me and he's like, "Hey, do you want to do like a side?" Because at the time I was making little hip hop beats on like 4 track, and we kind of were talking about that before. So he originally approached me to start a side project called the MC Bat Commander project, which we're still trying to do.
Okay.
Hasn't happened yet. I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do that. And at the time I was like, things hadn't been good with the sort of jelly beans, and I'm like, it's time to like move on. It just wasn't going the way I had hoped, and there was a lot of inner turmoil, I guess. So I'm like, yeah, I'd love to do a side project. But that turned into a phone call asking me to try out for the Aquabats. And eventually I did. And here I am.
What did you think though? Because obviously you both were playing ska then, but they had this whole production going on with the costumes and everything, and it was a lot of fun. And I feel like it's a different vibe than what a Sword Jelly Beans was. So when you looked at that, did that throw you off a bit, or did you think I really have to be a part of that because that looks like really fun?
You want to know the truth? It's so funny. I've said I'm kind of a hippie, so I remember the first time I saw them, it was like at the barn, and I was watching them play, and my mind was blown. I was like, the energy, the costumes, the show, the songs were awesome. I'm like, this is genius, and this is the most fun thing I've seen. I'm like, I want to play drums for this band. I said that. It was like in 90 something. Like, I put it out there, not knowing that one day I would be in the band, but I loved it. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I fell in love with it, to be honest with you. And I've only said that about another band. I said that about the Agrolites. I'm like, I would love to play drums in the Agrolites. Just seems so fun. And that opportunity presented itself. So I got to do that for a while. So I just put it out in the universe and it happened. But with the Aquabats, I immediately saw the genius in it, and I'm like, this is awesome. They're not taking themselves serious, but they're playing real music that's really good and challenging, and it was awesome. I'm like, I want to be a part of that.
I'm very much the same. I'm very much, I wouldn't say I'm a hippie, but I'm very into the woo-woo shit and the law of attraction. And there's been a lot of bands or people I've talked to where they have said that so in the beginning of their interviews, they'll say something, and then later on in the interview, it's like they caught up to that thing happened. So I'll point it out to them. I'm like, isn't that crazy? They're like, fuck, I never thought about that. I'm like, yeah, man, it's cool when I think if you really want something that bad, it kind of does throw it out as far as where you're gonna show up to kind of get it and like pay attention to it, being like, all right, you're here. Do you want this?
It's awareness, right, and consciousness. If you're aware of it, because it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything in your everyday life and just pass all the signs that may be in front of you. But definitely, I'm a firm believer in that.
So when Wiley described it, he was like, we're playing a show, and I look over to the left, and I see Travis talking to Mark, the guys from Blank, and you're talking to the guys from the Aquabats. Did that show actually happen, or was it kind of just a I thought of it like this?
That show happened, but the timeline is wrong. That's not when that happened.
Yeah, because it sounds like based on what you said that didn't happen at that time.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I always talk to the Aquabats. They're all rad guys, and that's how I ended up in the band because I got along with them all. We're playing shows with them, multiple shows. Like we're doing the same thing. We're on the same stage. Like there was a lot of competition back in the day. It's gone now, which is awesome. Back then it was competitive, but I was just trying to make friends with my peers and like you guys are doing something awesome, and I would watch their set because I loved them.
Well, and I'm just gonna jump to present day and then go back. It's kind of funny because the two bands, the two ska band, I mean, I'm sure there's ones that I'm missing, but the ones that never stopped, I just always think of it as you guys and Real Big Fish. That you guys had this fun thing happening where you just kept it going, and there was a time where it seemed like I'm like, wow, they're still fucking doing this, and then it kind of like comes back up because at that time, I mean, you guys were playing ska bands around that time. I mean, Slapstick was there for a little bit, and then it was Less Than Jake, and then you had Pie Tasters and Memphis Gothalies, and who the fuck else was like a bigger ska? I don't know. It was like they were there, and then all of a sudden, when was it? You hit a wall in like 2000 something, 2000, 2001, where ska started really, and I said this before, it's like ska starts getting like shit on by like the crowds. So when you joined the Aquabats in 2002, I mean, you're right at the time where that's kind of it, you're in the thick of it.
Yeah, I think when I joined I had been in the band when I joined for at least a year before we did anything. We were just rehearsing and kind of writing music also. But we're so blessed as a band, number one, to be able to still do it and have people come out. We've never taken ourselves serious, and we don't write the best songs, we don't play the best music, but we put on a show that is like genuine. We mess up, it's okay. We're having a good time, and the crowd's right there with us. It's inclusive, and our old fans are bringing their kids. Well, now they're grown up. I think it might even be their kids. But we're lucky to still be able to do it. During that time, you're right. It was a lull, and it wasn't the most popular music. But we've had this niche where our fans have always like supported us, and it's kind of we've been lucky in that sense where we still were able to play shows and keep it alive.
Well, you guys like do it in a very creative way. I mean, well, I'll definitely dive into Yo Gabba Gabba too, because a friend of mine who used to do throw punk shows back in the day, her name's Melissa, and I interviewed her like very early in the podcast, and she was like, "Oh, my son, like he loves that show," and so I was like, it just seems you guys were smart and staying relevant and sticking it out through all that shit. But to go back to when you joined the band, I mean, when you join it, are you going on the road just all the fucking time, or do they kind of break it up a little bit where it wasn't as intense?
I think it wasn't as intense. It was a little more strategic, and it wasn't as much. With Assorted Jelly Beans, we were widely mentioned. We were like playing, we were taking every show and every tour that came our way. We would be on the road with Assorted Jelly Beans like 2 months into a tour, and then they're like, "Hey, we just got another tour." We leave a week after we get home. So that I don't think that level of intensity was there with the Aquabats. What's weird with the Aquabats is domestically we were solid, but overseas there wasn't ever really a presence because of distribution. So Aquabats in Japan or Aquabats in Europe wasn't a thing until our later years actually. Whereas sort of jelly beans, we would like cycle through the US and then we'd go to Japan, then Australia, then UK, and then come back and do it again. So we were lucky in that sense with the sort of jelly beans. With Aquabats, it wasn't until like our later years that we were able to go overseas and explore that.
When you joined the band, what did you bring to it creatively where you're like, hey, do you guys want to try this?
So I think I've always tinkered and wrote music on my own. And there was an electronic aspect to what I do because I do it mostly myself in my home studios. I think bringing that, whether people love it or hate it in the Aquabats, I probably that has a little something to do with me, like the hip hop stuff or anything that's more groove oriented. I think I brought that to the table a little bit because our original idea was to start our hip hop project with the Bat Commander and myself. And so I think that kind of bled into the Aquabats music and what we do also.
Is the whole thing because he's been the main guy this entire time? I mean, I'm looking on Wikipedia, just a solid red line across for the beginning until like right now. When he started it, did he have a vision of, was it a collaboration or was he like, I have this vision and can you guys just kind of follow it, or is he open to new ideas from all the members that you guys have that come in and go?
I think Aquabats kind of started as a joke at a party. They wore costumes, and then it morphed into the superhero thing. And then because of the Bat Commander's influences, I think it morphed into like the Japanese superhero thing or like those old 60s shows and 60s Batman. And he's a creative mind, like no doubt about it. So he's a big influence on how the Aquabats were shaped. But there's a lot of other creative minds, like his brother Parker Jacobs, the artist. He's responsible for a lot of the art direction. Our trumpet player is responsible for the skull caps that we wear, our anti-negativity helmets, and some of the costume attributes because he worked at a wetsuit company called Alita. So all these things like lined up to kind of morph it into what it is now. And through the years, we saw you kind of like streamline the vision, and as certain members join the band or leave the band, you shape the band into what it is now. But yeah, the Bat Commander is a big part of the Aquabats. Like we couldn't do it without him.
It's so fun. It's so much fun. Like I'm just skimming through like your Instagram and everything, and it's just hilarious. Like I don't know, it's just it's so funny. You come in 2001, and then right around that time, like I said, ska's starting to change. So what kind of tours were you getting at that time, since the scene was like shifting in a whole different direction?
The interesting thing about the Aquabats is like we get lumped into the ska thing, but really the Fury of the Aquabats is like one of the ones that has most the ska, but everything after that was kind of in a genre of its own. So we kind of were able to play on a lot of different shows. Like we're not just, as a matter of fact, I feel like we do better at more punk festivals or regular shows that aren't billed as ska shows because a lot of ska people, like the OGs, don't like us like musically, right? Because we're not traditional. We don't fall in any certain category. Especially now with our last release that we did, it's kind of all over the place. And that's the fun of it, is we're able to do a lot of different things. So the shows that we were playing when I joined the band, we would do our own tours, our own headlining tours, and they were solid shows. Like we just kind of did it ourselves for a good period of time there. We never really experienced the lull that maybe a lot of the ska bands did because we were not just a ska band. So I guess we were fortunate in that sense because I don't recall, like everybody's played like stinker shows where there's like 30 people there, but I don't recall there ever being a period of time where we're like, should we hang this up? Like, what do we do? There's no one coming. So fortunately, we didn't experience that.
Yeah, it would be funny just because I'm thinking of that time period. You got bands coming out right around then. You've got like, the Against Me's and Take It Back Sundays and Yellow Cards and all this shit. When you see those bands coming out, are you thinking, do we want to play with these guys or we want to just stay away from any of that?
Yeah. So like our release that we did, I think it was 2005, which was Charge. That one is more like
Yeah,
it's
a
got
Nitro.
more, yeah, a little more pop punk feel to it than ska. There's like maybe one, if you could call it ska song on there. And I guess that was our response to staying relevant. Let's do something a little more rock oriented. But we were able to do quite a bit with that. Like that record took us to Japan for the first time, which was awesome. We went with the Offspring. That was wild.
Oh, wow.
It was something else, let me tell you. His shows were huge.
Real quick, if you're needing an explainer video, that's what I do for a living. My company is drive80.com. You can email me at mike@drive80.com for some samples and pricing. Industries that I've created explainer animations for over the last 14 years are tech, software, medical, pharma, recruiting, nonprofits, accounting, ed tech, and more. That's all I'm going to say. So now back to the show. Which album was that for theirs?
Ooh, that's a good question.
That was after like the Pretty Fly for a White Guy era too,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. Yeah, because they had a lot of hits by that time. And that's what I realized when I was watching them. I'm like, these guys are hit machines. They have so many hit songs. It was insane.
What was insane about it though? Is it insane just to like the whole production and the buses and all that shit, or like just going out afterwards and maybe getting into clubs you wouldn't have gone to earlier? I don't know. Like what was crazy?
Just the size of the shows, they were pretty epic. Something about Japan is it's a very peaceful place and they have a lot of integrity there. And we showed up and set up our gear, and the next show we went to the next show and went to stage to go set up our gear, and it was already set up in the most better than I could set it up myself, because they marked it off. Like, the crew was incredible. One of the funny things also is, like, when you play in Japan after you play a song, they don't really clap because they're very polite, and they don't want to like talk over you, or like, so we're like, do they hate us, or like, what is going on? No one's clapping,
Oh,
no
wow.
one's yelling. But during the songs they're like dancing around and stuff, but there's no one clapping afterwards, and it's like you can hear crickets, and they're like, no, 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 it's Japan's a little different. They want to hear what you have to say, and if they're moving around during your set, then you're doing good. But yeah, so then after every show, culturally, you got to go to a Japanese drink and eat place where you just finish playing your show, and then after the show they take you to like a restaurant bar, and you just eat and drink all night. And if you don't go, they're like, it's kind of rude not to go, so you're obligated to go, which I thought it was pretty cool, pretty fun. Our man our manager at the time was a Caucasian guy. Looked, I mean, I wouldn't say he looked like Dexter Holland, but he had the same color hair. Our van got chased because our manager looked like him. They thought we were the offspring. So they're chasing our van because our manager had blonde hair, and we like blocked in and everything. It was pretty funny.
Oh wow. Did they realize that it wasn't him?
Eventually, yeah, but
That's scary.
it took a minute. But one person does it, then the whole flock comes, and so it was pretty wild.
Did you guys take from playing those giant shows and coming back to the States? Like, what did you guys take from that to bring it to your live shows here?
I think, it's tricky for us being a support band because our show, there's a production behind it. So out there, we weren't able to really do what we do here. It was very stripped down, and that could be a tricky thing for us. But I mean, just the experience of going to Japan and being humbled, with that many people there, it's pretty awesome. And then you come back to the States and you play a show and you're setting up your gear, and I'm like, hey, can you hand me that gaff tape? Oh, go get it yourself, man. Like, that's what I brought back. They care a lot in Japan.
How much of you guys are involved with Yo Gabba Gabba?
The bad commander, Christian Jacobs, created the show with his cousin Scott Schultz. I'm one of the songwriters, so I wrote quite a few songs for that. Our old keyboard player, trumpet player, Adam Dybert, Prince Adam, he also is a composer for the show. And then, various members of the Aquabats have had like cameos on Yo Gabba, but for the most part, I think I'm the only one in the band that actually works on the show when it's in production. So we just wrapped about a year ago new season for ITV, or sorry, Apple TV. So there's new episodes on there. So we were doing that again, which was awesome. But yeah, so I write music for the show, and then through the nature of the show, it's kind of a DIY show. We wear multiple hats. Sometimes we're in some of the dancing characters, or so we've done quite a few things. But for the most part, it's the Bat Commander and myself.
I mean, that's cool, man. I just feel like when you're starting a band, a punk band, you're a teenager, and then you think, okay, well, there's really only this path to take, and then these other doors are opening up where you're like, oh yeah, and this other band, they're touring more, and I could still do it with them. And then he's like, this, we're gonna do the show, and you're like, oh wow, I can actually branch out even more and do that. That seems like it's pretty exciting to have that the path just kind of just go in these different directions for you to keep you in this.
It's been awesome. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned is life is relationships and how you nurture them. You never want to burn bridges, and it's we're sharing the stage with so many different people, friends. Like, you never know if the guy setting up your drums or the guy moving cables around has a band that you're going to play with one day. You're going to be opening for them. So just treat everyone like the same, and just everyone has a story, and like I said, I'm so grateful and blessed to still be able to play music, because I don't know what I would do if I didn't. So it's been incredible that I still get to do it. I mean, one of the things that I think about a lot is Ricky and Wiley. I wish they still were able to play. I wish we can play. Like, I've tried to get some stuff going for us, but it's not the right time, because we get offers to play here and there, and I'm like, man, that sounds really fun. And that show in Canada that Assorted Jelly Beans played, we played the Montreal Rock Fest. I think that's what it was called. It was really fun. I know Wiley said I looked like I was doing my taxes, but probably because I was concentrating.
I was so excited just to get like the other side of it where you're like, wait a minute.
No, I had so much fun. Like, I was in heaven. That crowd was huge. I was like, this is incredible. I had the time of my life. It was great.
Because he said a lot of times, like, you'll hit him up, like, hey man, do you want to get together and play some shows? What usually prompts you to do that?
Usually it's not to play shows. Usually it's to check in and say hi. How you doing? Are you doing okay? That's usually why I do it. Recently it was because we had some shows that were planned, and we got some really interesting offers that looked like a lot of fun, and that's why I reached out. But for a while I was talking to Ricky quite often, actually, because we don't live too far from each other.
Yeah, where are you at again?
I'm in Orange County, so usually it's to check in and make sure everyone's healthy and like doing good.
Yeah.
That's my motive.
Do you, this just popped in my head. Do you guys call like Aquabats? Do you guys call each other your stage names when you're off stage, or do you go back to your human names?
We never we never call each other by our real names. It's
Really?
forbidden. It's forbidden. You'll get kicked out of the band.
No, are you kidding? Or are you serious?
April Fools.
Oh, okay. It is your first.
No, we call it no. That's yeah. When we're talking, in interviews and stuff, like, I just like to refer to our bandmates as our bandmates and their stage names. But we're also our guitar player Ego Bones. I call him Bones now. I just don't even call him his real name. But yeah, our singer, we call each other by our real names.
What's the vibe between you guys off stage? Is it serious? Is it playful? Like, what do you guys all like together?
Oh, we have fun. We've been doing this so long together. We have a good time. Like, when we're on tour, we'll surf together, we'll skate together, we go to breakfast, we hang out. It's fun. You're in close quarters, so it's a brotherhood. We have a good time. It's playful for sure.
I'd hope so. That'd be so funny if you guys were just like all stoic like off stage and no one talked to each other.
No, I've seen that before, and that just looks miserable, especially because you're away from home and you're on tour. I'm like, man, why are you still doing this? This should be a fun thing. But yeah, it's a playful vibe for sure.
What's the process of you guys giving new members their stage name? How does that happen?
That's a weird one. Like, I didn't have a stage name for a good year and a half. It's usually loosely based off of our actual characteristics or personalities. And same with our show, our characters on the TV show, on the Aquabat Super Show. All those scripts are based off of close to actual events. Like, it's kind of our actual personalities.
Yeah, what's the fitness there? You just really into fitness?
Well, I used to be, and I still try to keep active, but yeah, I was pretty active. I ran a lot, ran marathons, and then I felt like I had to. just in order to play the drums the way I want to play them. There's a cardio aspect to it, so definitely active. And it was kind of a joke, like Ricky Fitness, that's so ridiculous. We tried a bunch of different things, and then someone just said it in the room, and they're like, "That's it." And that was a year into being in the band.
Did you guys ever have a chance to play a show with Blink before they like got huge, where it was like Travis was playing for them, or does that never happen?
What with Assorted Jelly Beans or
With
Aquabats?
Aquabats.
Yes, we did, and then I guess it was probably, I mean, 8, 9 years ago now, maybe 10. We played a show with them at the Palladium, and that was the last time. But we have played with them. I think that was the last. That was like that show was the show where everyone kind of talked and mended everything and just like, hey man, what's up? Kind of got together again. But Travis has always been cool with us. We come from the same music scene, so Travis is really good about always recognizing that, like whether he's mentioning Assorted Jelly Beans on a podcast, or I just saw him on some TV show where he mentions how he got into the Aquabats, and it's pretty rad that he still like talks about it, which is pretty cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I just saw that Tom DeLonge's on Toby from H2O's podcast. I gotta check that out.
I saw that.
Yeah, I was like, I wanna listen to that shit. Do you listen to like any podcasts about that back in the day, or do you?
Every now and then I will, but it's not one specific. I'll just see a clip of one that looks interesting. I'm like, oh, I want to watch that one, but I don't seek any out. I should be better about that, but I'm a single father. I have two daughters full time, and I'm always doing something. So it's like hard for me to like sit and dedicate time to that, or I'm a pretty busy dad these days.
So I just kind of noticed that you guys, so I'm looking through your history and the record labels that you went through, and then obviously, so when you're on Nitro, that's when Offspring takes you out because that was Dexter's label or is Dexter's label. But then you go into like Fearless, and then it gets to Gloopy Records. Is Gloopy your guys' record label?
Yes,
Okay, I was like,
yes.
I saw that name. I'm like, that has to be their label.
Yeah, so Gloopy's our brand that we have. We do all our merch through there, and our TV show related products launch through that. And then we do our own releases now, which is kind of awesome because we don't have to answer creatively to anyone about our records. We could just kind of make the records we want to make now, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel like you guys would want to have complete control because it's such a specific. There's such a I don't know. It's so like specific. I'm trying to say here. It just makes sense that you guys would have this vision that you'd want to control. And I think if the label came in outside, have they ever tried to kind of steer you in a different direction?
I think in the past, before my time, I know they ran into that a little bit. And then even with getting the TV show, like the Aquabat Super Show, getting that going has been tricky in the past because there's so much creative control that people want and their vision of it versus our vision. It makes the most sense for us to self-fund it and do it ourselves so that we can put out what we want to put out.
Awesome. Well, what's coming out? Stuff finally came out last year. Has there ever been a point where you're thinking, I don't know if we want to do this anymore, and then someone will say like, all right, I got some ideas, I'll get some songs, or is there just we're gonna keep going and going and going with this thing?
There has been talk of records being obsolete these days. Like recording a record is not. It seems like a dying art. It's better to just release a few songs at a time, or an EP, or release singles. The recording process on this last Finally album, it was hard to like facilitate and navigate and get everyone together, and it's just getting harder and harder to do that. Not to say we'll never do another record, but and if I had it my way, I would release singles and maybe EPs, or release a few singles at a time and then put an EP or an album out. It just you're able to give people more that way too, because you can write the songs faster than committing to, a 12, 13 song album that takes a lot longer. So that way you're giving more content to people, and rather than a full album that might not even get listened to.
I mean, I think that too. Like when I listen to new records now, unless I really love the band, I'll hear a couple songs and I'll just stray and go to whatever billions of selections I have in front of me.
Yeah, and how many, how long did that take? How much work went into them recording that album? And people are going to listen to three songs, maybe. So I'm constantly writing music for things. We have a few people in the band that do, so there's always music floating around. There's music coming for sure.
Yeah, plus also I think you have like one. It's like back in the day, if you heard a song on a comp, you'd get excited because you want more. It's almost like giving, kind of holding the carrot in front of people, and because they want more. If you have the whole thing, they're like, maybe I don't want it as much.
100%. The thing about comps is like I don't think we would have done half the stuff that we did if it wasn't for the comps that we were on. That those worked so well for that time period because that's how we ended up in Japan for the first time because we were the Skanking in the Pit compilation that was out. It's half Japanese bands, half American bands, and we got to go over there and it was incredible. And Punk Uprisings, we were on that. That was a big one for us. And then that Tony Hawk thing that you guys touched a little bit on that. The Tony Hawk soundtrack did a lot for us as well, which was kind of awesome.
So when you're talking about all those, you're talking about Sword of Jelly Beans with
Yeah,
those
sort of
albums.
jelly beans. Yeah, yeah. Because when I was with the Aquabats, there wasn't comps were kind of fizzling out a little bit. I think maybe it got oversaturated and there was just too many to keep track of. And I think they didn't have the same impact as those early comps. Because everyone you ask people, what comps were you listening to back then? I feel like they'll say the same like 5 or 10.
Yeah, like I was bringing up Cinema Beer Nuts. I
Cinema
mean,
Beer Nuts
that's how I
and
found you guys, was that doing No Time on that, on the video comp with the pregnant smoking women.
classic.
That's so fucking great. Well, cool, man. All right, so I'll start wrapping this up. Before I ask the last two questions, is there a story you've never told before on an interview that you'd like to tell now?
I have one. It's not that exciting, but so early I got yelled at for this one by Joe Escalante from the Vandals. So this was we were on tour with Guttermouth, Assorted Jelly Beans, and the tour was a close to 2 month tour, I think I said. We were about 2 weeks in, and I got a call from our booking agent saying there's an opening slot on the No Doubt tour for us. And we're on tour. I'm like, wait, but we're on tour right now. Like, what do we? And we were like opening the Guttermouth tour. We weren't support. We were just the opening act. They're like, so you don't want to do it? I'm like, we can't. We're on tour. And so I hung up the phone, and then I get a call like 15 minutes later from Joe Escalante. He's like, what did you do? I'm like, what do you mean? What did I do? You got offered a No Doubt tour and you passed on it. I was like, we're on tour. He's like, yeah, but you could have taken a week off and came back. It was only a week, but he's like, you could have taken a week off and come back to the Guttermouth tour. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh man. But we were so young. We were like kids. I didn't know what the heck we were doing
Didn't you get on that tour though? Because Wiley talked like you were on tour with those guys.
with Guttermouth, but we not with No Doubt.
Oh, who am I? I thought, wait, shit, maybe I'm mixing up interviews because I could swear I just talked to someone. I thought it was Wiley where, yeah, I thought he said that, or you played a show with No Doubt and
We
like,
did. We played. Oh wow, that wasn't. We played a show called Board in Orange County, where No Doubt, Social Distortion, Offspring, everyone played. It was essentially what kicked off the Warp Tour. It eventually morphed into the Warp Tour, but it was a Sublime played. It was a legendary show. There's a lot of footage of it online. If you look it up, it's called Board in OC,
Bored and
and
OC.
we played that pretty early on in our career, and that was a really good show for us. It was really fun. But No Doubt did play that.
I thought he told a story about how the drummer, he'd be like, we're gonna go out, but like I don't want to like buy anybody anything, and then he'd get drunk and be like, drinks are on me. I think that was the
Okay,
story.
so he plays drums for the Vandals sometimes.
Really?
Yeah, Adrian.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he would fill in for the Vandals every now and then, and yeah, so I think that's probably when that would have happened.
Does he still do that?
I haven't seen him do it for a while, but there was a time where he would do it periodically, consistently, I would say.
Man, I mean,
Yeah.
trying to fill, I don't know, Josh Freese's shoes seems like a interesting.
Yeah, that was cool. That kind of set the bar for me, like going on tour with the Vandals the first time, and then having that be my benchmark as what a drummer should be. Watching them play every night, I'm like, that's how you play the drums. Okay, cool. Having the opportunity to watch that and learn from that kind of set the bar for me, like what I need to strive to be as a drummer.
I didn't even think about that you were, because that's when he was in the band. Because wasn't there someone originally besides him?
At that time, it would alternate between two incredible drummers. It was either Brooks Wackerman, who's an incredible drummer, or Josh Freese.
Yeah, I'm saying like for you looking at that, you must have been like, holy fuck.
It made me try a lot harder. I'm obviously not even in the same wheelhouse as them, but they just seeing them play that way and learning from them, and it was a great experience.
Ah, that's so cool. All right, man. Last two questions for us. Ask the last one. What would you like to plug? It could be about you. It could be about a friend or a cause. It could be about all of them.
Let's see. I There's not much going on, but check out the Aquabats finally. That's out. Our last album. I feel really good about that one. And then I did my solo project not that long. Well, it's coming up on a year, but it's out. It's Ricky Fitness solo project. You can check that out. And stay cool. Treat each other kind.
Well, that's the last part is the what scene ethics do you hold on to this day?
I try not to. I used to be pretty like judgmental back in the day about bands, and that's the furthest thing from my mind now when I see a band. I'm just excited to see people playing music and doing what they love. And I always go into a show or watch a new band with that mentality. Just enjoy what's in front of you. Support your musicians, your local musicians, I love I teach drum lessons to younger kids, and I love seeing them grow as musicians, and some of them have a lot of passion, and just support your young musicians because it's a great thing for them to be able to do, and they're the future.
Was there any, and I've never done this before, but there was, because you heard Wiley's interview, were there any other stories where you're like, oh, like this actually happened a little bit different?
Let's see. I touched on the Blink one. I touched on.
You guys playing the reunion show?
I think what's that?
The reunion show where he said you look bored.
Oh yeah, I touched on that one. The Tony Hawk thing. We did get paid for that, but it wasn't very much. It was like $250. I think we were so unrecouped with our record label that that's where all that went. We weren't the best with money. Yeah.